Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Talking Transition. And today we are talking with Miss Emmeline Soyars. Emily is a rising junior at Liberty University studying business and communications, and she is also the current title holder of Miss Farquhar. Emily will be moving on to competing in the Miss Virginia pageant at the end of this June. So we are definitely excited to have her with us today. Emily, welcome. Tell us a little bit about yourself. So you're doing some amazing things. What is there that we don't know about Emily? Emmeline. I said Emily.
You're, you're good. If you're gonna use a nickname, you can use Emmy, but
okay. Well, welcome.
Thank you. So you already gave like the basis of my life. I'm a student at Liberty. I'm a rising junior. This past semester was actually my first semester there because I transferred halfway through the year, which was interesting. Some fun facts: I love to swing dance. There's a swing dance club on the Liberty campus, and they do it 2 times a week, and then I go into Lynchburg for another time a week. I love that. It's so much fun. I also love crafts. I love to sew and crochet and do cross stitch. And to read. I like to do a whole lot of stuff.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, Talkin Transition is all about sharing those firsthand experiences of teens and young adults with autism and how they are navigating through this space. So tell us about your journey with autism.
Mm-hmm. So when I was in elementary school, my mom sort of got the vibe that I was a little bit different, and she tried to do research. She loves doing research. Give her anything and she'll read a whole bunch of stuff, but she couldn't really find anything on like autism in girls because it wasn't as researched back then, and I didn't fit in with like the stereotypical boy characteristics. So my mom was like, it's fine, let's put it on the back burner, it'll be fine. And then when I was and like all throughout the rest of my schooling, there was always, little things that I didn't really equate with autism because, yet again, I didn't see any girls with autism. So that wasn't, something that registered. Then when I was about to graduate high school, I kept seeing a bunch of videos about girls with autism and like going through these like big old lists of characteristics. And I was like, oh my goodness, I identify with like 27 out of 30 of these. So,
Wow.
yeah, it was definitely something that I was not expecting. And then at the end of that summer, like right before I was going to school, my family, we were on our yearly beach trip, and I had a meeting with the doctor on like the first day of the beach trip. And he was like, okay, take this like 200 question test, and then we'll meet again a week later, which was at the very end of my beach trip. So I did the whole test and everything, and then we met back together, and he was like, yeah, based on this test and all of the stuff that you told me, you are autistic. And which was definitely something that I was not like at that point I was kind of expecting it, but like for the whole rest of my life, that wasn't something that I anticipated. So yeah, so that was the first big thing. Then obviously, huge change with that, but also about to go into my freshman year of college was a whole lot at once because I was literally moving into college like a week and a half later.
Wow.
Yeah, and I started therapy very shortly after that to sort of like work through that really big transition.
That's interesting. So how old were you when you graduated from high school?
I had just turned 18.
18.
Mhm.
Wow. So what was your high school experience like? Because you mentioned that the data or the information out there that um, shows the experiences of girls with autism, and I can tell you it's still very limited from what I found. But some of the scientific information that's out there girls generally find out when they're sort of going through adolescence, and typically about the time where you were sort of questioning things and discovering it. So what was it like for you in high school? Did you have a big friend group? You say you love to swing dance? Were you participating in any of these things while you were in high school?
No, I discovered my love of swing music, and I hadn't actually swing danced until this past semester. But I
Oh.
always loved the music and like 40s and 50s fashion. I started sewing when I was in eighth grade. My grandma taught me, and that was one of the things because that very quickly became a special interest of mine, which I didn't know back then that that was a thing. Um,
Mhm.
but that was one of the things that like set me apart from my peers because I would go, into my small high school wearing vintage stuff, which was not a thing, but that was what I enjoyed. So for the majority of high school, I had one to two friends. I did not have a big friend group by any means. In late middle school, I had like five friends, and then in seventh and eighth grade, they all decided to turn on me and bully me. So going into high school, I had very few friends. I ended up graduating with two really good friends. So that was great. In my senior year, I also met my boyfriend, who we've been dating for almost 3 years now, and he very quickly became my best friend. So that was nice. But yeah,
Awesome.
not a whole lot of friends throughout all of high school.
Yeah, no, it sounds like me. And I've definitely had that. I call it being kicked off the island. When you sort of have a friend group that kind of turns on you. I've experienced that, and it definitely changes your outlook and how you engage with people. So I definitely know what that feels like. So after high school, you transfer. Where'd you go to school? Because you say you just transferred to Liberty.
Yes, I was originally going to VCU.
How was that experience for you at VCU? That's in for
Richmond,
everyone who doesn't know, VCU stands for,
Virginia Commonwealth University.
okay, in Richmond. How was that experience for you?
It it was good at first. I was in the costume design major. And I
Mhm.
quickly got a group of friends. I'm always the person, and this is gonna sound so sad, but I'm always the person who's like in the friend group, but everyone else is like better friends with each other, if that makes sense. So that situation, continued into then. But I had people that I hung out with and stuff. So that was good. And then in the second semester of my freshman year, some of my friends had different opinions than I do on things, and because of that, they didn't want to be my friends.
Mm.
So I sort of lost all my friends again. Which yeah, I'm not trying this to be like a sob story or anything. It turned out
Yeah.
fine. But so yeah, so then going into my sophomore year at VCU, I ended up changing majors from costume design to communications. And that trend sort of continued. I was on the crew team, so I had friends on the crew team, and then I had my boyfriend, because he also went to VCU at the time. But it was definitely you going into school, trying to make friends, and then immediately having to basically start over the next year was definitely not easy.
Yeah, yeah. And I saw a little video of you, coxswain. Does that
Oh
ring?
yeah.
Was that
Yeah,
you?
yeah, Coxon. Yeah.
Coxswain. Oh my goodness. I'm so embarrassed. I was in the Navy and I can't even I should know that, right? But I saw a video of you because I'm a little sleuther. I like to do my research.
Found my YouTube.
Yeah, no, I was just like, look at her. You are a natural motivator of people, and I think natural leader. So I was like, that's really awesome.
Thank
Um,
you.
and I found some other stuff about you, but I'll bring that up in a minute. But so going through all of the ups and downs of being in school, what was the autism support like? Did you continue therapy? Did you have um some outside support sort of helping you navigate those spaces with friends? Because autism, as well, some of the things I've seen where it really impacts how we engage with each other socially. So how what was your support system like, and did the university provide support as well?
Mhm. So going into my freshman year, the friends that I made immediately were very supportive. Two of them in the group were also neurodivergent, so that was pretty easy. They didn't like, judge me or anything. They were just like, okay, it's you, cool.
Mhm.
And the crew team was a little bit more difficult because I don't immediately, when I make friends, I'm like, hey, I'm autistic. That's not like my opening line. So
Mhm.
for that, I ended up telling them a good bit in, because as a coxswain, you're pretty much the head of the boat and you're like telling everyone stuff to do. And like I'm not good at tone and like controlling my tone and like that sort of thing. So one day we were in the boat and I was just, talking, doing my normal thing, and I said something. I don't even remember what it is now, but everyone like immediately, whoa, 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 stop it. That was not nice. And I was like, oh my goodness, I'm so sorry, and immediately apologized. And at the time I was like close to crying because like everyone in the boat was like, ooh, it was a whole lot. But I ended up
Yeah.
telling them after practice, hey, you guys, I'm so sorry. I did not know it came across that way. I'm autistic. I have issues with tone and like how stuff comes across. So
Mhm.
after that point, they were really nice about it. No issues from then on. But probably the most supportive person throughout this whole process was my mom. Like I said, she loves to do a whole lot of research. So once I was diagnosed, she like dove in, found like everything she could, started doing research on she doesn't think she's autistic. She thinks she's ADHD, but she was doing like a lot of research in like the similarities and like how she then understands like what I'm going through. And I did go to
Mhm.
therapy for a while. I think I went consistently until January of my freshman year. So probably how many months is that? Like 5, 6 months. After that, I went sporadically, like when I felt I needed it, because at that
Mhm.
point I already felt fairly solid. Like I learned about like me and my autism and stuff. So yeah, so that was kind of that stuff.
Yeah. So I love that you call out your mom and give her um the acknowledgement for that support, because I can imagine what that could sort of feel like as a mom. And sometimes the research kind of shows that, and I don't know how true this is because they haven't figured it out yet, about sometimes it can be related, can be sometimes genetic. Um, and then there are, like you said, a lot of similarities between ADHD and autism. Do you have any relatives with autism, or were you the first in your family to be diagnosed?
The first in my family that's diagnosed. There are other things on my mom's side that isn't diagnosed. Like my mom, after doing a whole bunch of research about me, is fairly certain that my grandmother is neurodivergent. On my mom's mom. Nothing on my dad's side that I'm aware of. But yeah, I was the first in the family to be officially diagnosed with anything.
Yeah, yeah. Same, in my family, my son has autism, but having those conversations, particularly with my brother, um, about, some of the things growing up, there were some, definitely some indications or some traits that we do have within the family.
Hmm.
So um, that's interesting. Now, putting it all together, you also was an Eagle Scout, or you are an Eagle Scout. Can you
Uh-huh.
still have that title after, sorry, is it a
Yeah.
title that sticks with you
Yep.
forever?
You
Because you
you keep
earned
it for
that.
forever.
Yes. Okay. So shout out to you, right? One of the first of two women in Virginia to have that title. How did that feel, making history?
Oh, it was crazy. I loved Scouts so much. I loved camping. I loved my favorite experience was going caving because I like to get dirty, and in caving I got completely covered with mud and I loved it. It was fabulous. I like slid down a wall of mud and it was so much fun. Which I know sounds gross, but I loved it.
You have
Um,
to do a mud run then. I don't know if they still do mud runs, but
Oh,
mud
I
runs
did a
are
Spartan
really,
run once. Oh my
yeah.
God, it was awesome. I loved it. It was freezing, but if it had been a warm day, I would have been thriving.
Hmm.
But but I loved Scouts because my two close friends were in it. So it was something that we all did together. We actually started the troop together. It was me, two of my friends, then two other girls. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, because they let girls into Scouts in 2019, and we started in like January of 2019. We started our troop in March, which left me a little over 2 years to become an Eagle Scout, which is very quick. The minimum amount that you can do is 18 months, but for most people, it takes like 3 to 5 years because they,
Yeah.
until they're like 12 to 18 to be able to do it. And I became an Eagle 2 days before my 18th birthday because 18 is the cutoff. And
Yeah.
yeah, it was such a big achievement, and I was so happy about it. I love it.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. So Eagle Scout, you row crew, and you wear a crown. So what got you into pageant life? Had you always competed in pageants, or
Mm.
what made you say, you know what, I want to do this? Because I'll tell you, I grew up watching Miss America, Miss USA
Mhm.
pageants, and that was like always the highlight. I love pageants. Never got to be in one, but so what? Tell us what that experience was like for you.
Yeah, I started around 2 years ago. I wanted to do them when I was younger, but since I was already like going through bullying and stuff, my mom didn't want me to like take all of my self-confidence through how I looked and not get it from anything else, basically. And her only
Mhm.
experience with pageants was watching toddlers and tiaras, and she was very scared of that world. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. So when I started dating my boyfriend, his mom and his sisters have done pageants for years. His older sister actually competed at Miss Virginia twice. So his mom basically taught me everything I needed to know. I think I've done like 7 pageants total over those 2 years.
Wow.
I got second place at my very first pageant, but I won prettiest out of the whole pageant, which I was like, oh my goodness, thank you.
That matters. No.
Yeah. Yeah, so I started that around 2 years ago, and then this past October I competed. It was a double crowning. So there was Miss Commonwealth and then Miss Fauquier, and I ended up winning Miss Fauquier. And if you give me 2 seconds, I can actually grab my crown and sash, and I'm showing
Yeah.
everyone.
Yeah.
I
And I
got my
realize too,
nifty crown box.
I've been saying that wrong. Please pronounce it for me again, because I've lived in Virginia a long time, but I'm a New Orleans girl, so my
No, you're good. It's pronounced Fauquier, and it's a county
Fauquier.
in Northern Virginia.
Fauquier.
So this is my Miss America crown. It has the 4 points because Miss America has four points to their crown. It like stands for stuff. And then I have my Miss Fauquier, what this one? My Miss Fauquier sash. And this I wear to all my official stuff. And when you met me the other day, I had this on.
Yes.
Yeah. So so last October was my first time competing in the Miss America system, specifically, obviously, Miss Virginia. And yeah, so it was my first time. I've met some really nice girls so far. And there's actually, which is crazy, there's another autistic girl competing this year, which I met her at our past like orientation where they were telling us all about Miss Virginia stuff. And I was like, oh my goodness, this is so crazy. I love that. So I'm really
Yeah.
excited to get to know her better actually during Miss Virginia week.
No, that is awesome. So what's your platform?
Yeah.
Because I know every um participant has to have a platform. And so how does it work when you win? Do you go out and kind of start doing these things, or is this something that you adopt beforehand and you are consistently working to fulfill that mission?
Mhm. So most pageant girls have like one platform that they use for pretty much all of their pageants, or any pageant that needs a platform, because lots of them you don't need it for. It's just you walk on stage. But mine is
Mhm.
called Girls Like Me. It's about advocating and educating for autism in girls, specifically for girls who are diagnosed later in life. Because that was my experience.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so yeah, so that's basically what it is. You have that before you get crowned as your local title, because during the local competition, you have an interview, and obviously the judges are going to ask you a bunch of questions because they want to get to know you and what you're going to bring to the title. So then these past however many months from October till now, I've been doing various things to promote that. One of the well, obviously you saw me last weekend at the Autism Society of Central Virginia's 5K run.
Mhm.
I ended up raising a bunch of money for that. And one of the other things I'm super proud of is on Liberty campus, I worked with an SGA representative to have them put a sensory room in on campus. And I got to watch it go through all the levels of government. And I got to speak before two of them. I got to speak before the House of Representatives and the Senate, which was so cool. And
Awesome.
yeah, I was very happy with that. They one of the people in the Senate, because the Senate's like the small one, there was only like 16 delegates in there. One of them said that it was in his top three favorite bills for the entire year, which just made me so happy because it was something that I worked on for a while. And it's now waiting to be signed by the president, SGA president, and then it will get implemented on campus, which I'm so proud of.
That is
So,
awesome.
yeah.
So, and when this happens, because I am about 30 minutes from Liberty, I want to see the sensory room. I want to
Oh,
go in.
totally.
And so when it's signed, whenever your bill is signed and they create this room and there's a unveiling, I want an invitation. Just
Oh,
putting it out
totally.
there. No pressure, but I want I want to see.
Totally.
So that is awesome. And I love that you have taken up sort of this advocacy for um people with autism, because everyone walks through life very differently. So your experiences, and I really hope that by doing these transition talks, that there's some little girl or little boy out there that's going to look at you and get some hope from your story, because sometimes it can be very tough, as going through that transition system, or that transition period rather, and not everyone has that same level of support, like you mentioned your mom and stuff like that. So I love that you are doing other things for people who may not have that voice or that platform, right, to sort of stand on. So how do you feel that this has elevated, do you feel like the autism has changed your pageant experience? I don't know if that really makes sense, but knowing, because you were late diagnosed, do you think that you would be, had you not received that diagnosis, you still be on this path?
I Honestly, I thought about that and I'm not sure. I got diagnosed after I think I did my first two pageants, but they were just small ones. They didn't have like interview or anything like that. Um,
Mhm.
so I don't know if I would be going for Miss Virginia. I think I would still do little pageants just because I enjoy it. But I think the goal and like drive to want to do something and educate people and like share about this because it's something that's so important that people don't know about. I think it's definitely pushed me to want to compete for Miss Virginia to be able to do that. I think otherwise I would be doing more for selfish reasons like, oh, I want to be Miss Virginia. But now,
Yeah.
but but the main focus is now is because I want to do it to be able to spread this message.
No, that's awesome. So what happens if you win? What what do you envision for girls like me?
So one of the main things that you do as Miss Virginia, well, obviously you're going to compete at Miss America. That's the big thing. But you do the ABC school tour, which is sponsored by ABC, and they have you. talk about whatever like their main points are. Like maybe at one school you're doing bullying, at one school you're doing whatever, but in that you also get to talk about your platform. And one thing, there are obviously lots of children books like about autism and stuff like that, but I think when it comes to kids you really have to be careful about how you introduce stuff and like be very sensitive to the topic. So I think one of the things specifically talking about girls like me is I would have a brochure or pamphlet that I would give to the teachers and like any principals or like any administration, be like, hey, just so you know, here's some things that you can be looking out for. And
Mhm.
obviously not give that to the kids because they're not going to get it, because the ABC school tour is with like elementary school age, and you can do upper level schools, but it's mostly with elementary school age. So
Mhm.
yeah, so that's specifically how I would do Girls Like Me in the schools. I of course want to partner with the Autism Society of Central Virginia because I've already done some stuff with them so far, and I really like them. They're super nice. I would want to partner with them throughout my year as Miss Virginia to not only promote what they do, but also through them promote Girls Like Me and educating about girls.
Mhm. No, that is awesome. And I'll tell you, regardless of the pageant outcome, this is needed. And I think you are definitely the perfect person to pursue it. So I hope this becomes, I would say, a part of your life's work. So speaking of life's work, like, so what do you want to be when you grow up, right? What's the dream job? Where do you see yourself, 5, 10 years from now?
Mhm. I want to do Mary Kay full time. Do you know what Mary Kay is?
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes, I do. And I was a red jacket, a red coat, or whatever it is. Back in the day, do you know what I mean? You made that
Yeah.
face. Yes. Okay. Yes.
Yeah, no, I totally get you. I've been doing Mary Kay for 2 years now, shortly after I graduated high school. My mom has done it for 25 some years now, has had 7 free cars. So it's sort of like in my blood. I grew up, her going to
Mhm.
the meetings and all that stuff. And I've just figured out that a desk job or like stuff like that would not be good for me. It's not something that I would thrive in at all. I like
Yeah.
the flexibility and like the decision to do what I want to do with Mary Kay. So yeah, 10 years from now, goal is to be a national sales director. Um, you know, living living it up.
Yes.
But
No, I love that.
yeah, short-term goal is I want to either when I graduate or shortly after I graduate, I want to have one of the free cars. Hopefully within 5 years have the pink caddy, but we'll see how that goes.
No pressure. No pressure. No, I love it. Like my mind is just, swirling around here with ideas. No, that's awesome.
Thank you.
So how can we support you? And do you feel like you get enough support, or people with autism, living with autism, young adults, teens? Do you feel like there's enough support out there for living on the spectrum? And if not, what can we do to support as a society,
Yeah.
community?
I think first and foremost, it's just about education because you can't really help if you don't know what the heck is going on. I
Mhm.
think that's one of the biggest things is that obviously, when I got diagnosed, one of the things that I did is told like the important people in my family. So, obviously, my parents, I ended up telling like my grandma and stuff. And at first, my grandma was like, okay, sure. But then we had more conversations and she was like, oh, I didn't know that you dealt with that stuff.
Mm.
So yeah, it's just about education and being honest about what you as an autistic person goes through and like really communicating about what you need. For example, one thing in my family is that especially when cooking or doing anything in the kitchen, I tend to stim a whole lot. So I will be like dancing around, spinning, and that sort of thing. And when I was younger, my parents just thought I was really hyper and they'd be like, okay, stop doing that. But
Mhm.
now that they get where it's coming from, they're more willing to let me do that instead of being like stop. They're like, okay, that's just Emmeline, she's just doing her thing. So
Yeah.
yeah, I know for me, I don't I'm pretty low support needs, so I don't need a whole lot of like academic support or anything like that. Mine is more, emotional, like day-to-day sort of thing. I feel like in regards to that, I'm doing pretty well, but I know I'm very privileged that I have a family like I do. Yeah, I think it also just depends on where you are, like what school you go to and stuff. It depends on what they have access to.
Yeah, that's a big thing. And I didn't realize this because of course, when you don't have a need for the services, you're not looking for them. But there are over like 120 colleges throughout the US that have um support systems for incoming freshmen and or young adults returning to school that have autism. And so I think definitely um I would love to see more of that highlighted
Mhm.
for because I feel like I think parents if they knew that a lot of this stuff exists, it makes a difference when the child first enters ninth grade, and then you can start to prepare. I think it sets the expectation in a different way for high school. So that way, if they would love to go to college or a trade school or something like that, that it's available. So I'm definitely glad to see that more companies are out there and they are really putting forth that effort to have a more inclusive environment
Mhm. And
with,
one
with
thing
more
that
support.
Oh, yeah. And I've actually worked pretty closely with the Autism Club on Liberty's campus and also the Office of Disability and something something. And they're actually going to be doing this thing. I don't know if they're implementing it this year. I think they were trying to, where any autistic student can come to campus 2 weeks early before classes start to be able to get acclimated to everything, basically, which I think is such a good idea. I don't think that I would necessarily need that because I plan on coming the second they open the dorms anyway. I only need a few days to get used to
Mhm.
everything. But I think that is such a great idea. And I'm super proud of Liberty that they're working on that because obviously, historically, it's a pretty conservative campus. And I've noticed a lot of conservative people don't necessarily care about this sort of thing. So I'm so happy that this is becoming a more mainstream thing.
Yeah. No, wow. So now I'm going to have to do a little bit more research on Liberty. No, I love that that is definitely an option available to students because I think it really evens the playing field for individuals who want to go to college. So, last question for you.
Mhm.
What advice would you give to a girl or a young woman with autism who is looking to get into pageantry?
I think the first thing is know your limits and know what you are capable of doing because there are some things that like I know if I become Miss Virginia, I'll need to get like accommodations or help with. Um, but yeah, to be really be aware of what you could do, and but don't let that hold you back. Just like be aware of it. Like if you know that you aren't good at public speaking or that's not something you can do, maybe don't try to do something like Miss Virginia. There are so many other pageants that you can do where that isn't a huge like part of the competition. But definitely try to get out of your comfort zone, like just a little bit. Try to do
Mhm.
something that you necessarily wouldn't have thought you would do in the past. I think that's so important, but also be true to who you are and don't let a diagnosis hold you back. Do whatever the heck you want to do, but be true to yourself in the process. And that's something that I've had to work on through doing Miss Virginia, like with my director and everything, like staying true to who I am and not trying to just shove myself into a neurotypical mold.
That's great advice. And I think that's great advice for anybody, whether they are on the spectrum or not, because that is, you have to you have to love yourself, I think, at the end of the day. And anytime you try to walk a mile, I think, in someone else's shoes, you you end up with sore feet. It just never works out. So I I have enjoyed talking to you, and I wish you luck. We will be rooting for you as you compete for Miss Virginia at the end of June. And whatever you need, please consider us a part of your community here at Thrive with Artie. And so it's been great having you. Thank you for sharing your transition story with us.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.